Several Bible verses speak to the theme of peace and rest, which can be deeply comforting when seeking a good night's sleep. These verses remind us of God's protection, care, and peace that transcends circumstances. Let's explore a few of these verses and explain them in depth. 1. Psalm 4 verse 8. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. In-depth explanation. This verse expresses deep trust in God. The writer, traditionally King David, is facing external troubles and challenges, yet declares his confidence in God's protection. David is able to sleep in peace because he knows God is his protector, providing security beyond what any human effort can guarantee. The phrase, I will both lie down and sleep, shows not only an initial sense of peace but also sustained rest throughout the night. David is able to let go of anxiety because he knows God is sovereign over his circumstances. The core lesson here is that true rest, including restful sleep, comes from trusting in God's care and safety. When we release our worries to Him, we find the peace necessary for sleep, no matter what is happening in our lives. 2. Proverbs 3 verse 24. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. In-depth explanation. This verse is a promise of sweet, peaceful sleep that comes from living wisely and in accordance with God's instructions. The broader context of Proverbs 3 encourages seeking wisdom, trusting in the Lord, and avoiding fear or anxiety by relying on God's guidance. The promise of not being afraid when lying down highlights God's ability to deliver us from fear, which is often a barrier to restful sleep. This verse emphasizes that when we trust God and walk in wisdom, fear does not have to control our thoughts at night. As a result, sleep becomes sweet, implying both deep rest and refreshment. Sweet sleep is a reflection of inner peace, the peace that comes from knowing that God is in control and that we are walking in His ways. When we allow ourselves to rest in His wisdom, we avoid the anxiety that disturbs our sleep. 3. Psalm 127 verse 2. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for He gives to His beloved sleep. In-depth explanation. This verse speaks directly to the futility of anxious work and the importance of trusting God for provision. The psalm contrasts a lifestyle of restless, anxious labor with the gift of restful sleep that God gives to those He loves. The phrase, eating the bread of anxious toil, refers to those who work tirelessly but are filled with worry, never able to fully rest or trust in God's provision. The psalm teaches that working without trust in God leads to emptiness. We may work hard, but without God's blessing, that work becomes exhausting and fruitless. On the other hand, God promises rest and sleep to His beloved. This doesn't mean laziness or avoiding work, but rather that God's children can work diligently and then rest in His care, knowing that He is ultimately the one who sustains and provides. This verse is a reminder that trust in God brings true rest, both for our bodies and our souls. 4. Psalm 91 verses 1 to 2. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. In-depth explanation. While not specifically about sleep, this verse reflects a theme of security and peace, which is essential for rest. The psalmist declares that those who dwell with God find refuge and protection, like a person living in the shadow of a great fortress. To abide in the shadow of the Almighty means to live in close relationship with God, constantly relying on His protection. The imagery of a fortress evokes a sense of strength and safety, reminding believers that when we trust God, we can rest without fear because He is guarding us. For someone lying down to sleep, this verse provides reassurance that no matter the dangers or uncertainties of life, God's presence offers security and rest. This deep sense of protection allows believers to sleep in peace, knowing that they are under God's watchful care. 5. Matthew 11 verses 28 to 30. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me, For I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. In-depth explanation. In this passage, Jesus offers rest to those who are weary and burdened. He invites people to come to him for rest, which includes both physical rest and spiritual rest. This rest is not just about relief from the physical burdens of life, but also the mental and emotional stresses that can weigh a person down. The rest that Jesus promises is described as rest for your souls, indicating a deep, inner peace that goes beyond just physical relaxation. It is the kind of rest that refreshes and revitalizes the entire being, offering comfort to those who are overwhelmed by life's demands. Jesus contrasts the heavy burdens that people carry, whether from life's circumstances, guilt, or fear, with his light yoke. He encourages believers to let go of their own struggles and instead take on the peace and ease that come from following him. This kind of peace makes it easier to sleep because it addresses the source of our unrest, our internal burdens, and replaces them with divine peace. 6. Isaiah 26 verse 3. You keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. In-depth explanation. This verse emphasizes the importance of keeping our minds focused on God. When we do so, God promises to keep us in perfect peace. The Hebrew term for perfect peace here is shalom shalom, indicating a peace that is complete and whole. It includes not only the absence of external conflict, but also the inner tranquility that comes from trusting God. The key to experiencing this peace is trust. When we place our trust in God and continually focus our thoughts on Him, we are shielded from the anxieties and worries that often disturb our sleep. This perfect peace provides a sense of calm that allows for true rest at night. Conclusion. The Bible offers a wealth of promises about rest, peace, and sleep. Whether we are struggling with anxiety, fear, or exhaustion from life's demands, Scripture consistently directs us to trust in God's protection and care. Verses like Psalm 4 verse 8 and Proverbs 3 verse 24 offer practical comfort by reminding us that peaceful sleep comes from trusting in God's provision and releasing our fears to Him. Ultimately, God desires for His children to rest in Him, both physically and spiritually. He knows the value of sleep and has designed it as a gift to refresh and restore us. By anchoring our trust in God's promises and letting go of anxiety, we can experience the peaceful, sweet rest that He promises.